The annual Infrastructure Africa Business Forum was concluded yesterday at the Sandton Convention Centre. Now, discussions at the top of the agenda included the energy crisis in the country and the continent, information communication technology and telecoms in Africa, agriculture and trans-boundary water projects in Africa. Now, to tell us more, we are joined in studio by Garish Matarirano, the senior counsel at Macfarlanes law firm, who was an integral part of this forum. Good morning to you, Gary, and welcome to AM News.
Good morning, Elvis.
Now, firstly, tell us about the company's role, your company, Macfarlanes' role, with regards to this two-day forum.
A bit of background about Macfarlanes. At Macfarlanes, we specialize and have particular expertise in infrastructure projects, particularly in the power sector. So it was quite an opportune moment for us to share our ideas in that sector at the Infrastructure Forum. So on behalf of Macfarlanes, I spoke a bit about energy projects in sub-Saharan Africa at the Energy in Africa session, which is quite a broad topic to discuss on.
Now, infrastructure development, now that must be music to your ears when people talk about the National Development Plan, because that focused particularly on infrastructure development.
Yes, that's correct. And I think the topical issue at the moment, insofar as it relates to national development, is the issue of ensuring that we have enough power to keep the lights on and industry working. So as part of the National Development Plan, you've got the Integrated Resource Plan, which is a very ambitious policy by the South African government to aggressively roll out the provision of power. And they've done quite well in the last 3 years. As you may know, in 2011, the Department of Energy launched the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program, which is ongoing, and quite a few of the projects have reached financial close and have already started generating power. And we're also imminently expecting the Department of Energy to release the tender documents for participation by private players in the coal baseload program. So we are seeing initiatives from that perspective in terms of focusing on partnerships between private sector and government in infrastructure development in a key area such as power.
We'll engage with that a little bit just now, but let's look at the forum as such. Tell us about the critical issues that emerged from that particular forum this week. I've mentioned some of them earlier, but was there something more specific that I've missed?
Yes, there are quite a few salient issues that came out of the Infrastructure Forum. As I alluded to a few moments ago, there's a realization that there's a need to deepen partnerships between public sector and private sector in infrastructure development, in terms of sourcing financing, in terms of bringing on more players into developing infrastructure across the continent, and also, where possible, find ways of harmonizing legislation and policy frameworks so that there's a consistent and integrated rollout of infrastructure across the continent.
Not just in South Africa, but across the continent, harmonizing those policy frameworks.
Yes, because as you know, there's a lot more integration in terms of economic activity across the continent. So there needs to be an integrated view on infrastructure development. There's a lot of complementarity within regions and interregionally. So it is quite important in terms of, for example, in the power sector, you find that there are quite a few power pools in each region for the trading of electricity. So in terms of infrastructure development of the network, it is important to ensure that there is a consistent and integrated way of developing that infrastructure in a way that ensures that there's enough security of supply of energy, not only within regions but across the continent, interregionally.
Now, talking about energy, was there any resolution on the energy crisis in South Africa that we currently have, or that we're currently experiencing? And were there also talk about moving from dirty energy to clean energy?
Yes, it is obviously a topical issue, not only in South Africa, but across the continent, because Eskom is a key player in the power sector in the continent and is a lead supplier of power in the continent to quite a commercial hub. So our discussions did center around the need to move away from dirty power, as you call it, to clean power. So there are initiatives, for example, in South Africa, in Namibia, and a few other African countries, for the rollout of clean energy in the form of renewable energy sources, such as powered by the wind, the sun, biomass. And South Africa has actually taken a lead in that regard in terms of rolling out, as mentioned earlier, the RERPP program on renewable energy. So there is a very serious drive in the market to make sure that there is a rollout of renewable energy and do away with dirty energy. But be that as it may, as you know, renewable energy is intermittent in nature. It can only generate electricity to the extent that those resources are there, to the extent that there's enough sun, to the extent that the wind blows. So obviously, other sources such as coal will remain important because they provide constant supply of electricity.
And huge supplies, obviously, in Africa, yes.
Yes, definitely.
But what about nuclear, though? Was that under the radar, perhaps?
It is always a question that's raised in the context of sustained power. But I think its interaction with other sources of energy, such as renewables, and other forms of base load or mid-marriage, such as gas or diesel, is important because it is quite a major financial investment. So proper planning and discussion among stakeholders as to affordability and in terms of feasibility and legislative framework supporting the safe rollout of nuclear power is important. So it is an ongoing discussion. I think ultimately there will be a decision on it, but I think at the moment, I think it's a question of crossing the T's and dotting the I's on the key factors as mentioned that determine the rollout of nuclear power. So let's wait and see.
Now, you did say that coal will remain because we are still busy now with Kusaleka and, of course, Madupi power stations, coal-fired power stations here. But what about the implementation of that coal baseload program? Is that something new, or is it something within the current program that we're working towards? And how will this help the country?
Thanks very much. I think the coal baseload program has been a long time coming. And recently the Department of Energy released an invitation to interested parties to participate and register their interest in the program. So this is a new program for independent private players to participate in building these power stations, owning them and operating them. So we're expecting the Department of Energy to release the tender documents, hopefully in the course of August, in the next few months, to ensure that there's enough baseload supply in the system. And
just in closing, briefly in 10 seconds, was the forum a success?
I think it is a success insofar as we, as Africans, continue to talk and exchange ideas and plan together the way forward to ensure that there's increased economic activity and more infrastructure development for the betterment of African people.
Gary, thank you so much for your time and joining us here on AM News. That was Garish Matarirano, the senior counsel at Macfarlanes law firm, telling us about the outcomes of the 3rd Annual Infrastructure Africa Business Forum.